So today we'll be doing a final recap of the Australian Open in 2026, and give out some awards to some of the best matches, some of the players that really made this tournament. So to start, the first thing we're going to do is what I consider wins that shouldn't have been. Now, this basically what this is you take the statistics from a match, from both the player that ended up winning the match and their opponent, and you input those statistics into an algorithm that compares these stats to the stats of matches in the past, looking at who won matches in the past based on statistics and who lost matches in the past based on statistics. You feed their statistics into this algorithm, and basically it uh, it creates a percentage that they thought, like the odds that they won the match, based on just their statistics and based on looking on at past data. So these are going to be all the examples at which you inputted the data to this algorithm, and it predicted a winner that ended up being the loser of this match. Now, when I say predict, it's nothing about looking into the future. It's just that the algorithm does not have the information about who actually won the match in real life. They're only given the stats. So I hope that made sense. It's a little bit complicated. But yeah, these are the matches where the loser had better stats in conglomerate than the winner of the match did. So the first one was a little bit of a surprise. It was the Fritz Stan Wawrinka match. So Wawrinka's stats in this match were not bad. I feel like that's, I mean, maybe it's not too surprising given how the first set was brought to a tiebreaker and the third and the fourth sets were 6-4, 6-4 to Fritz. But yeah, so that's the first one. Second one, Djokovic Sinner match. This one, it's not too surprising, especially given that Sinner ended up winning more points in this match, and Djokovic was just more clutch in this match. Next, Popper and Mueller, five-setter, very, very close, but the algorithm gave the slight edge to Popper in this match, so give credit to Mueller on those clutch points. Duckworth Prismic, now another five-setter, very close one, tiebreaker in the first. Yeah. And then last one is going to be Musetti Djokovic. This one should be absolutely no surprise. Musetti obviously had the better stats in this match, given how he was dominating in the first two sets of this match before his injury. Now, another possible way to look at this award is kind of like a clutch factor, winning the important points, because the only way for your stats to, like for example, the Djokovic Sinner match is a great example where the only way to win a match where you lose more total points is either you had one really, really bad set, which is possible. I think you kind of can see that in the Duckworth example where he lost the set 6-1, or you could just be incredibly clutch in the times when it matters the most, as Djokovic was in that semifinal. So there's multiple ways to kind of look at this. I just thought it was just interesting to look at, and see which matches the algorithm had trouble discerning who won based on their stats. And then, so I thought, the winner of this award, I guess if there would be a winner, it's going to be that Musetti Djokovic match, because, I mean, if we look at wins that shouldn't have been, Djokovic himself said that he should have been going home in this match because Musetti played better than him in this game. And then top right, all the way to the right, the PI score, the magnitude of this number dictates how difficult it was for the algorithm to pick the winner. So, for example, in the Djokovic Musetti match, we see a negative 3.3 result for that match, meaning that it was very heavily favored towards Musetti. The algorithm really thought Musetti was going to win. We really thought that Musetti won the match, versus like the Taylor Fritz Stan Wawrinka, where it basically said when you fed the stats into the algorithm, it wasn't quite sure who won. All right, next. Breakout player of the tournament. So 3 nominees are going to be Elliot Spitzeri, Lerner Tien, and Ethan Quinn. This one is, breakout player of the tournament. What exactly does that mean? Who ends up? What's the criteria for this award? I want to start with Werner Tien because I think it might be a little difficult to consider his tournament a breakout. I think he just took he went that next step, that extra level this tournament. His big breakout was probably more last year when he defeated Daniil Medvedev in the second round last year at the Australian Open. So, but I still thought he was, an interesting debate because he also made the quarterfinals of this tournament. So that's, I mean, that is also a breakout for him. And the other two players that I want to mention are Elliot Spizzirri, had that great win against Joao Fonseca in the first round and played center tough in the third. And then Ethan Quinn, good win against Griekspoor in the first. Got Hurkacz as well in the tournament before losing to Jakub Mensik. Uh, all in all, my breakup player of the tournament is going to be Ethan Quinn. I thought his wins in general were a little bit better than that of Spitziri's. Very impressed from Ethan Quinn this tournament. Also, just like to mention how all three breakout players of the tournament all American. So impressive for the Americans. Next is going to be upset of the tournament. So nominees for this going to be Ferry Cavalli first round, Nuno Borges versus Felix in the first round, Fonseca Spizzirri in the first round, and Djokovic over Sinner in the semi-final. So, we have three first-round matchups, and then one semifinal. And let's start with the semifinal, the one that's an outlier from the others. This one. So upset of the tournament, anytime you're picking Novak Djokovic at the Australian Open, it's tough to consider him the underdog. However, in this case, in this situation, he was an underdog. Uh, most people were picking Sinner to win this one. Sinner won, been incredible on the hard courts as of late, and has been looking good. And the only hiccup was that Spizzirri match in the third round, but this was definitely an upset and a result that was shocking, not because we not because like Djokovic played well and stuff. It's just we didn't know if Djokovic had that five setter at a slam still in him at the age that he is, and he did. This is going to be one of the biggest, like probably top 10, I would say, legacy defining moment for Novak Djokovic. Maybe that's a little bit of a stretch, maybe a little bit of prisoner of the moment. But to defeat a prime Jannik Sinner at the age Djokovic is in 5 sets at the Australian Open, that to me is like a big feather in his cap. Now the other three were more, your traditional upset. You have a non-seeded player versus seeded player. Ferry in the first against Caboli was an interesting one. Caboli was dealing with the illness, didn't look fully himself. Borges Felix, this is when going into it, you knew that Borges was going to cause some problems to Felix. Felix has tended to be a little bit upset prone in the past, but he had high expectations, being fourth in the world at the time, and or not necessarily fourth in the world at the time because he's a seventh seed, but he finished year end four last year. And Borges, a good player, could won that, especially in the five set environment, really battles and makes it tough for his opponent. And then you have the Spizzirri Fonseca match. Spizzirri, this was his first big win at the tournament. Defeated Fonseca, someone who had hype, someone who people were lining up that Fonseca Sinner match for the third round. It ended up being Spizzirri Sinner in the third round, and all the drama of that match. So. But in the end, my upset of the tournament is going to go to Novak Djokovic's big win against Jannik Sinner in the semifinal. Match of the tournament. So one of the matches of the tournament was Spizzirri Jannik Sinner third round. The drama of that, the roof closing, Sinner cramping, and there was really a period of time when you were curious and wondering if Sinner's tournament was going to be over in the third round. Yeah. Another match was the final. I thought the final between Alcaraz and Djokovic. Not only did it have so much history behind it, but Djokovic's his first set really bringing it to Alcaraz really elevated the match for me. And the fourth set was an awesome set of tennis. It could have really gone either way. Djokovic had his break chances, but Alcaraz was super clutch in that one. Second round match between Stan Wawrinka and Arthur Gia. This was one of the stories of the first week of the tournament. Stan Wawrinka, turning back the clock a little bit and having this like having a great performance in this one, going the distance, going 5 sets and pulling out the win in his farewell tour. Awesome to see. And then also, of course, we got to mention the two semifinals. The first one, Alcaraz Zverev. These two matches were the two semifinals were uh, both awesome matches, and I think either one of them could be match of the tournament. And depending on what you like to see out of a match, I could see it going either way. The Alcaraz Zverev one obviously was the grueling, um, super long match that really had multiple like different facets to the match, different like eras of the match. You had the first 2 sets where Alcaraz looked to be, cruising might be a little bit disrespectful, but he looked in control. Then you have the entire match switch on a dime in the third set. Alcaraz starts cramping. He still forces a tiebreak. He's 2 points away at one point from just winning the match, being able to rest up for the final. Um, but then Zverev wins the tiebreaker. Fourth set goes to a tiebreaker. Zverev wins it. And then the fifth set, Zverev up 5-3, serving for the match, have a chance to the uh, make the Australian Open final. And then he gets broken by Alcaraz, and then the entire momentum switches again. Incredible match. Definitely a match that we will not forget for the near future, or the distant future, to be honest. Um, but then the Djokovic Sinner match was a different type of battle. This one was, there wasn't any real like huge cramping issues, physical issues. It was just great tennis being played. It was just Djokovic, every time Sinner had a chance to break Djokovic just found a little bit found that clutch point in him to win the match. In the end, I will give the trophy for match of the tournament to Djokovic Sinner. I would not be I would not at all disagree with you even if you give it to Alcaraz Zverev. I think it's more of a different flavor of ice cream between the two of them. Which one do you like better? The drama and the intrigue of the Alcaraz Zverev, or just the quality of tennis? In the end, what the tiebreaker was for me in this one was that I think I'm more likely to rewatch the Djokovic Sinner match than I am the Alcaraz Zverev match. I think it has a higher rewatchability um, because I think most of the drama in the Alcaraz Zverev match was due to not really knowing how it was going to end. I guess both of them are like that. I don't know. I just think that the quality of tennis was just slightly better. Actually, much not slightly better. It was much better in the Djokovic Sinner match. But the drama of the Alcaraz era, you can debate these two for forever. Dominant performance of the tournament. So we're gonna start off quarterfinal Alcaraz versus Demonor. Demonor came with this one absolutely firing, but Alcaraz got him in straights. This one, sneaky one, first round, Cilic, Altmaier goes bagel. You're starting to worry for Altmaier, but then he turns it around, force a tiebreaker in the third. But the bagel, I mean, that's dominant from Cilic in the first. Against a good opponent in Altmaier. Then fourth round, uh, we had Demonar on the wrong side of a dominant performance. But how about him in the fourth round? Absolutely dominant from him against Bublik, 6-4, 6-1, 6-1. And then Tommy Paul, David Fokina, 5 straight sets for Tommy Paul, winning 6-1 against Fokina at the Australian Open. Obviously, David Fokina was dealing with some injury leading to his walkover, but still an absolute dominant performance from Tommy Paul. And then the last dominant performance is going to be Werner Tien versus Medvedev. Who would have thought this coming into the tournament? Had a bagel in the second set, and straight sets win for Tien in the fourth round against Daniil Medvedev. It must just be a matchup issue for Medvedev against Tien, but incredible performance for Tien. And this is going to be my dominant performance of the tournament. Partially due to how kind of like unexpected it was. I think a lot of people were really excited for this fourth round match, thinking that it was going to go for maybe 5 sets. But Tien just flipped the script, played incredibly, and had a dominant performance. So now here are some of the biggest what ifs of the tournament. these are moments that, really shaped not only this Australian Open, but possibly even future legacies and how we look back on the Australian Open and how we look back on players in general. So the first one is going to be more specific to this year's Australian Open, and I'm going to talk about Mensic's withdrawal from the tournament. Now, uh, Jakub Mensik was he played, so he had a five setter in the first round, and then after the five setter, played really well in the second and the third rounds before having a fourth round tie against Novak Djokovic. At least we thought. Now Mensik ended up having to withdraw, and of course we can think back to Miami last year in the final in that where Mensik defeated Novak Djokovic, and it would have been a very, very interesting match. I still would have leaned towards Djokovic in it, but it would have been at least an interesting and intriguing match. And this, of course, also what makes this a big what if as well. Not only is could Mensik have defeated Novak Djokovic, but could he have had played a grueling match that could have tired Novak Djokovic, that could have possibly affected his level in a game, such as in a match against, like for example, Jannik Sinner in the semifinal. Now, another one is going to be related to Novak Djokovic, and this is absolutely not a surprise at all. What if Lorenzo Musetti didn't get injured and retire up 2-0 against Nole? Now, Musetti was playing lights out in that match, and I really think that he was going. I mean, Djokovic himself said that he thought that he was going to be out of the tournament if Musetti did not get injured. Now, um, what makes this such a big what if is not only is that Djokovic was going to be out of the tournament, but Musetti was playing at such a level that he could have, um, frustrated players in the semifinal. He would have faced Sinner in the semifinal. Now, this there's a lot of butterfly effects in this because even if we say he didn't defeat Sinner in the semifinal, and I feel like most people would have picked Sinner in that one, then we would have had a Sinner Alcaraz Australian Open final instead of what we had with the Djokovic Alcaraz um, uh, Australian Open final. Also, if Musetti were to have won this match, he would have been up to third in the world at the Australian Open at the time live rankings. I think he would have ended up being fourth after Novak Djokovic's making it to the final. But still, he would have been live ranked third in the world for Musetti, which would be his career high. And he would have gotten up to fourth at the end of the tournament. He would have passed Alexander Zverev if he were to have won this match. Now, a big what if, of course, is what if they didn't close the roof in Series Center? Um, this would have just come down to, if that was the case, I think this match would have looked a little bit more like the semifinal between Alcaraz and Zverev, where it was a super super hot day, and I think if the roof didn't close, then Sinner would have lost the match. Now, of course, like I'm not here to argue that the the protocol was put into place for the tournament, and it reached a heat index where they were set to close the roof. All the rules were followed, and it was just a little bit of luck for Jannik Sinner, but doesn't make it not a what if the heat index stayed at a 4.5 or whatever it was, low enough for them not to close the roof. Sinner would have been out of this tournament, and Siri would have been on to the fourth round. And and then you start to combine some of these what ifs, and we look at the if Sinner was out early, if Musetti didn't retire, all of a sudden we're looking at a possible Lorenzo Musetti into a major final if we're not careful. So, and the last what if, and this is going to be my winner for the biggest what if, is what if Zverev won the semifinal? And what makes this the biggest what if, in my opinion, is that obviously with the result with Djokovic winning it against Sinner in the other semifinal, Zverev Djokovic at this stage, I would have been so curious to see what the odds were on that match, because that could be one of Zverev's best chances to have won a major, it's like in a while, and maybe looking into the future as well. It is of no surprise that a lot of people are going to define Alexander Zverev's career very simply on if he can win a major. And that, I think, the way people perceive his career will be very different if he were to get that major. And this was simply a very big opportunity and chance for him to do that. Zverev Djokovic in the final would have been a, a very big opportunity for Zverev. So yeah, that's my winner for biggest what if. Now, these are just, when looking back on the tournament and really reflecting, these are just some matches that, when looking back, I kind of just forgot happened. Were a little bit, sneaky matches, and one of the ones I wanted to just bring up and mention. To start, Zverev Tien, a quarterfinal. Very fun match. Tien played fun, especially in that second set. I thought that was a fun match. How about this third round, Cerundolo Rublev? Tell me you remember that match. Kecmanovic, very first round, five setter. This was very played so incredibly fun and awesome in this match. Got to credit to him. And then in that match, third round, Musetti Makic, player that probably played Musetti's best in the entire tournament was Tomas Makic, forcing five sets against a very informed and fit Lorenzo Musetti. Third round, Kachanov Darderi. Um, this was one, great, like incredible win for Darderi to be Kachanov, at a slam on a hard court. And not even to go five, big one here, first set tiebreaker to win. That was huge. First round, Hurkacz Berg, one of the best first round matchups, I thought, going into it. Berg's been playing really, really well leading up into the tournament. And a good win for Hurkacz. First two sets going to tiebreakers as well. First round Pericard, Baez. Baez winning the first two Pericard, third and the fourth. Baez, whenever you're playing a big server like Pericard, great returner like Baez, it's like strength on strength. A little bit of an unpredictable match, and Baez has been playing really, really well on the hard courts on the lead up. And the last one I want to mention is Sebastian Baez versus Darderi. That whole little section, the little mini section of that draw with Baez, Darderi, Kachanov, Pericard was definitely a wild card when previewing the Australian Open, because you have a lot of different players. You have Baez, who's more of a clay court specialist, who had been playing well on the hard courts. You had Darderi, who has kind of really had a great year, but really doesn't have the pedigree on the hard courts. Then you have Kachanov, who is all Mr. Reliable at the Grand Slams, and then especially on the hard courts. And then you have Pericard, big server, who can literally win any match he plays as long as he serves well. That's a big if. But yeah. Now the winner for sneaky matches of the tournament is going to go to Kachanov Darderi in the third round. It's a good result for Darderi, one that I don't think is talked about enough. Now for some disappointments of the tournament, Fabio Cobolli, losing in the first round. Stefano Tsitsipas losing in the second round. How about good old Joao Fonseca losing in the first round to Spizzirri? Taylor Fritz. Now, disappointment, he was also injured, so I want to put that as a caveat. But he did have a disappointing tournament. He didn't look too good in the tournament at all. It doesn't look too good this year at all, even. But hope he gets fully healthy and fit. And winner is going to be Felix Auger-Aliassime. Ending last year fourth in the world, good U.S. Open run. You want him to start string together results and see really what he can do this year. And it did not start well with that first round loss to Nuno Borges. And yeah, so that's all the awards I'll be giving out for this year's Australian Open 2026 men's tournaments. Davis Cup is right around the corner. We got first round matchups this weekend. So, and there's 13 matches, I believe, maybe 14, but I'll be ranking all of them in terms of excitement, in terms of players that I'm excited to see, in terms of competitiveness as well. So, coming in at number 13 is going to be Australia versus Ecuador. And this is going to be played on outdoor clay in Ecuador. Now, the reason why this is 13th is you look at the Ecuadorian team and it leaves a lot to be desired, especially when looking at the Australian team. We see Vukic, Duckworth, Thompson, Hijikata, Kokonakis. Now that's a solid team. and one that I expect to get the job done. Now, the only caveat here is it is being played in Ecuador on the outdoor clay. Of course, clay is very popular in South America, so you got to give a little bit of credit to the Ecuadorians. A little bit of credit, a little bit of advantage towards the Ecuadorians on the surface, but I think the quality of the players for Australia are just a little bit too high. So I'm going to give the nod to Australia. Now, 12th is going to be the Netherlands versus India. This is going to be played on outdoor hard court in India. Once again, the Indian team leaves a little bit to be desired. You have Sumit Nagal, who is a known player, played at some Grand Slams in the past, but you look at the Netherlands team, and Jesper de Jong is the big one. You got Guy Den Uden as well, and this could be a competitive one. It being played in India, allow gives a little bit of an advantage to India, which then could help their talent disparity against the Netherlands. But yeah, I have them at 12th. 11th is going to be Peru versus Germany. This is actually kind of a sneaky one. If this one was being played in Peru on a clay court, I would have ranked it higher. We look at the two teams. Germany has Jan Struff, Yannick Hanfmann, youngster Justin Engel on their teams, while Peru has a solid squad, a solid three in Use Buemo and Varias. Sadly, I don't think indoor hard court is going to suit the Peruvians. I'm going to give Germany a nod in this one. At number 10 is going to be Sweden versus Czechia. The Czech team, you have Yuri Lehečka, which is awesome for them. You have Surchinta as well. Now, the Swedish team leaves a little bit to be desired. You have Leo Borg, Ole Wallen. You're missing that true number one for the Swedish team. You don't have any of the Yimmers for Sweden. So, yeah, this one could be competitive. It's being played in the Czech Republic as well, giving the edge to the Czechs. And also indoor hardcourt, which Lehečka should suit his style as well. Now, number 9 is going to be Belgium at Bulgaria. Now, this is interesting because it's on indoor courts, but indoor clay, which you gotta love with the Davis Cup whenever matches like that happen. The Bulgarian team, not a single player in the top 500 because Dimitrov is not playing in it. But then you look at the Belgian team. I mean, it really is a very good team. Big top two in Collignon and Alexander Blocks, the youngster in Blocks. I expect Belgium to win this one. Why this one is 9th is because you never know when you're playing, indoor clay in Bulgaria. So, I think this one's going to be an interesting one. At least I expect Belgium to win though. 8th is going to be Austria at Japan, played on an indoor hardcourt. Japan's team is solid. Mochizuki, Nishioka, Watanaki, and Nishikori is going to be playing against an Austrian team that did well in the Davis Cup last year, making the finals in Sebastian Offner, Rodionov, Lukas Niemeyer, and Lukas Meidler. Now, this I think, is going to be a very competitive one. It might not have the star power of some of the other ones we'll get to later, but I expect it to be a competitive matchup between the two. Next is Denmark at Croatia. Sadly, Denmark is missing their best player in Holger Rune. The Croatian team, solid, solid top two in Marin Cilic and Dino Prismic. The Danish team, you got August Holmgren, Elmer Mula. It's not, it's solid. 2 players in top 200. I expect Croatia to win this, especially at home on the indoor hard courts. 6 is going to be Argentina at South Korea on an indoor hard court. Now, the South Korean team has some names that might be familiar, such as Hyun Chung and Sun Woon Kwon. And the Argentinian team leaves a lot to be desired. No Juan Manuel Cerundolo, no Francisco Cerundolo, no Sebastian Baez. Instead, we're going with Tirante and Trugaliti. So I think this is going to be a competitive one. I think it lacks a little bit of the star power, but yeah, this one ain't too bad. Now, 5th is going to be Slovakia at France, and it's going to be in France on an indoor hard court. The French team, Arthur Rinderknecht. And the website still says Ugo Humbert, but he's not playing in this tournament. He's playing at ATP Montpellier. Also mentions Benjamin Bonzi and Pierre Huet Herbert. Now Herbert is from what I know, yeah. So he's more of a doubles player. You can see that in the 66 rank. Um, and they'll be going against Slovakia's Lucas Klein, Alex Molcon, and Norbert Gambos, all names that could be familiar with. And I've seen those in tournaments and Grand Slams before. Can Slovakia pull off the upset against France? I think there's a possibility in that. That's kind of why I ranked it so highly. And as well, also, with Ugo Humbert pulling out of the Davis Cup, his replacement is Alexander Mula, and he's making his debut for the French. I expect France to win this one, but I think it could be close and competitive. Now we get into the top four are I feel like a clear cut top four for these matchups. We start off with Serbia at Chile. Now, sadly, no Novak Djokovic for Serbia, but they still have a solid team in Hamad Medjedovic, Dusan Lajovic, and they're going to be facing off against Tabilo, Christian Garin, Barrios Vera, and Nicolas Yari. Now, this is, I think, a very, very tightly contested matchup. It is going to be played on outdoor clay, and I'd actually give the slight edge to Chile in this one. Now, number three is going to be Brazil versus Canada in Canada on an indoor hard court. This one would be higher up if Joao Fonseca was playing, or even if Thiago Sebovic was playing as well. Sadly, they are not. The Brazilian team leaves a lot to be desired, but the Canadian team is leaving a little bit to be desired too. No Felix, no Chapo. They're going to be relying on Gabriel Diallo, a great player, Liam Droxel, Alexis Galarnou, and Nicolas Arsenault. Now, this is one that I expect Canada to win, but could be interesting. Now, the next one is the top two very interesting matches. This one, I think, is a trap for the United States against Hungary, playing on, once again, indoor clay in Hungary. You look at the Hungarian team, Fabian Marozsan, really solid player. Then you got Puros as well, who we've seen in Grand Slams and other tournaments before. I think now the United States team has more quality. And we look at it, we have Ethan Quinn, Emilio Nava, and you still have Rom and Krajcek for the doubles as well. I mean, the U.S. is a team that's looking in general just to win the Davis Cup competition. So they got to win this match. Obviously, they got to win this match to do that. But it's definitely a test for them early on. And I think because of that is why they brought on Mr. Tommy Paul for this match. Good clay court player. Tommy Paul is a solid clay court player. Tommy Paul is. So I think they brought in a little reinforcement to help their team out a little bit. Now, the number one and best matchup for the Davis Cup this weekend is going to be Great Britain versus Norway. This is going to be in Norway. Now, you think of Norway in the past, you think of Casper Ruud, you think of just basically Casper Ruud. There weren't really, he didn't really have, a Robin to his Batman. Now he has that Robin in Nikolai Budkov-Kjær, a very high-rated youngster who played in ATP Next Gen last year. So excited to see what that duo can do and if they can cause any troubles to a very, very solid Great Britain team that has Jack Draper returning from injury. He skipped the Australian Open to come play in Norway in the Davis Cup. Gotta respect the passion for his country. And also as well, you have Cameron Norrie in the Great British team as well. Those the singles matches between Ruud, Kjær, Draper, Norrie are going to be very, very interesting. And that's my number one ranked matchup for the Davis Cup. So yeah, that's it. And people complain about Davis Cup, and I'm going to be one to complain about it as well. The finals I don't think are working, and I wish they go back to the old format where the finals, semifinals, quarterfinals are played in the locations of the country. Now, but you do like the first round is still Davis Cup. You're still playing, for example, in Norway in this example. So I think that I think the spirit and the soul of the Davis Cup can be found in the first round or the second round. So that's kind of why I'm excited for it. I like these. I like watching these ties, especially when you get an indoor clay court. USA Bulgaria, sign me up. Love how they brought on Tommy Paul too. Incredible stuff. But yeah, excited for this tournament. Excited for the first round, and yeah, see how these matches go. I'm sure there'll be some upsets, and you'll see how the Davis Cup first round goes. With the Australian Open 2026 all wrapped up, I thought it would be interesting to give out some awards for some of the best matches, best performances of the tournament. So today we're looking at the women's side. So first, we're going to do wins that shouldn't have been. As I've mentioned previously when giving out this award, this award is you take the stats from the match, you feed it into an algorithm, and you have the algorithm pick who they thought won the match. These are all the scenarios in which the computer picked the player the wrong player. First one is going to be Bai's win over Pavlyuchenkova in the first round with 3 sets. Giacomo win over the Kostic. Not surprising to see this one on the list. Han Stakusic in the first round. This one ended up having a walkover. Parks Iyala in the first round. The Iyala bagel in the first is kind of why this is on the list. Bartunkova, Kazatkina. We'll see Bartunkova again on this list, I'm sure. Siegelman, Samsonova. Common theme here is, players that had a bagel in the match, but ended up losing. So we see that with Samsonova bageling Siegelman in the first, but then losing the match. Graba Cocciaretto player that was playing very well in the lead up. And this was a surprising result. Bartunkova Bencic. So Bartunkova we got her twice because she won 2 matches where she got bageled. For her first 2 matches of the tournament, she had 2 bagels and she has 2 wins. So not too bad. Ubelka Towson, this one was a very, very close one, tightly contested. And this is the list of all the matches and the all the way to the right where the PI column is the more negative the number is. So, for example, the Nikola Bartunkova Belinda Bencic match, that was the one that the computer or the algorithm was most strongly certain that Bencic was the winner of the match, but turned out Bartunkova was. And we'll get to this match a little bit more later as well. Breakout player of the tournament, some nominees. We got Madison Inglis, we got Zeynep Sormez, we got Jinyu Wong, we got Bartunkova, and then we also have Eva Jovic. I think this is a pretty clear breakout player of the tournament. I'm going to give it to Eva Jovic. Great work for her to make it as far as she did, only losing to Arina Sabalenka. I think a lot of people, after her big dominant results, were curious to see if she can even go on and win the tournament. Sadly, Sabalenka was able to stop her. But yeah, there we go. Eva Jovic, breakout player of the tournament. Now, upset of the tournament. We're going to start with first round, Soinmez versus Alexandrova, 11 seed. One of the biggest seeds to lose. I think actually the biggest seed to lose in the first round. Then Giacomo Kostyuk. This was a big upset because Kostyuk played really, really well in one of the lead-up tournaments. I believe it was Brisbane. I could be wrong. It could have been Adelaide. I'm pretty sure it's Brisbane, though. That Kostyuk was playing really, really well, had some really good wins in those matches, and was someone that could have been a dark horse, to be honest, to win the entire thing. Kostyuk was probably in my top 14 to 15 players that to win the Australian Open, maybe even top 10, to be honest. That's how well she had been playing. And this one, couple tiebreakers, and then of course Kostyuk had the injury late on in the match. Now this was a little bit of an upset. Svitolina over Goff in the quarterfinal. This was not only an upset in terms of the Goff loss, but also the way it was, how it was 6-1, 6-2. And then second round Bartunkova Bencic, as mentioned previously, Bartunkova getting bageled in the second set, but ends up winning the match. Now, I mentioned Kostyuk playing well. Bencic was playing really, really well. Lights out against good competition as well in the United Cup in the lead up. And a lot of people had Bencic as a dark horse to win the entire thing. And my winner for upset tournament is going to be Belinda Bencic with Bartunkova. I think we're going to even see this match again later on in the video. So for match of the tournament, got to give some credit to this Venus Williams versus Danilovic match. Venus played this was we just played awesome in this match, especially being 45 years old and really playing a really competitive match. She really could have won this match. But yeah, I hope Venus gets one more Grand Slam win under her belt. How about this one? Osaka Kirstea in the second round. This one had a little drama to it as well, with Naomi Osaka chanting "Come on" and Kirstea getting a little bit mad about it, maybe a lot bit mad. And this was also the second match Osaka had the big dress pre-match. So that was a good match, competitive three setter. Giacomo Costri. This was, I mean, he had three sets go to tiebreakers. This was just an incredible match. And then the final, Sabalenka Rybakina. This one was high quality tennis. Both players played well, and Rybakina just snatched the match at the end. And then this is going to be my match of the tournament. The level that it was played at, the clutchness of Rybakina, her perseverance as well. Being down in the third set to come back. I give more credit to Rybakina in this match than take away credit from Sabalenka. Really impressed by Rybakina in this one. Dominant performance tournament. How about Amukova's 6-1, 6-1 win in the third round against Magdalene Net? Yeah, the quarterfinal, Sabalenka versus Jovic. Jovic only winning 3 games, 0 in the second set. Definitely a dominant performance for Sabalenka. Similarly, in the quarterfinals, Svitolina over Gauff with the 6-1, 6-2. And then my winner of this is going to be Iva Jovic's dominant win against Putintseva in the fourth round. Winning, where Putintseva only won 1 game in the entire match. And this was the result that led a lot of people to think that Jovic can go on and spring the upset on Sabalenka, but that did not happen for her. But yeah, this was definitely an incredible down performance and a very deserving winner of this award. Now, some of the biggest what ifs of the tournament. First, I want to start off with kind of what I mentioned before. What if Kostic doesn't get injured in the first round? Now, it's not a guarantee that she would have won the first round match against Giacomo, because the injury happened very late on in that third set, but it made it so that winning the tiebreaker was very difficult for her. Now, if Kostic were to have gotten past that first round match, would have been very interesting to see how far she would have gone. I think she could have taken the momentum, and I think she was a dangerous player in the tournament. Now, another biggest what if is what if Osaka doesn't withdraw from the tournament. I think this is big. Like, this was the first one that I thought of, because we were left. She played relatively well in the first couple of rounds. Had some good wins against some pretty good opponents. And it was getting to the third rounds. Latest stages of the tournament, and we kind of just were left with our questions unanswered about how well she was playing in this tournament, and how well she really could have gone. Because I feel like there are a lot of opportunities and possibilities for Osaka in this tournament. But my biggest what if of the tournament, and Bencic is getting, and this match, Bencic versus Bartunkova is getting a lot of awards. This award series, but I think that's just how influential this match was. What if Bencic doesn't lose early? I put the draw up here because in the fourth round, she would have been playing against Rybakina, and I think that could have been a difficult one for Rybakina. We go, do some butterfly effect stuff, and what if Bencic wins against Bartunkova, wins against Mertens, faces Rybakina, defeats her? We could be seeing Sabalenka as the Australian Open champion. We could be seeing Brenda Bencic as the Australian Open champion, or we could even be seeing Iga Swiatek as the Australian Open champion, because they wouldn't have had to play in the quarterfinals. We could even see Jessica Pegula as making the final. Who knows? I think this was a very big, influential match early on in the tournament. Now, some forgotten sneaky matches. Boca Towels with third round, two-seeded players. I don't know if it's necessarily forgotten. I feel like most people remember it, but two-seeded players, third round. It's always a little sneaky. Sveta Kalinskaya. This was definitely a sneaky match, as Kalinskaya, flipped the script in the second set. Wasn't able to get the third set, but maybe the competitive match. How about Svitolina Schneider? Third round match, against two-seeded players, where Svitolina first went into a tiebreaker and ended up getting the win. Sakari Andreeva, a little tough early round test for Andreeva against Sakari. She bageled Sakari in the first and really took it to Sakari And I think this was a result that really increased the hype train for Andreeva, and it ended up being a little bit of a disappointing tournament for Andreeva. One that I think a lot of people, people had Andreeva winning the entire thing, and I don't think that's crazy at all. And a very sneaky one, third round, Jinyu Wang versus Linda Mushkova. Just a good, solid, really good win for Jinyu Wang, a player that went has been going under the radar like last month, I would say. And played well in the lead up and played well in the Australian Open as well. So, but my winner is going to go to Kalinskaya Swiatek. Third round match between two seeded players that was competitive, and you know it was good performance for Swiatek to end up closing out the win, but it was kind of a precursor for kind of foreshadowing for what was to come later on tournament for Swiatek. Now, disappointments of the tournament. Belinda Bencic, she was definitely disappointed to see her lose in the second round. Marta Kostyuk, who was in the first round. Emma Navarro losing in the first round definitely was a disappointment. And then Emma Raducanu as well, losing early. Now these two, we got Coco Gauff and Iga Swiatek as also disappointments. Less so than the first four, I would say, but I just like to mention them. Them sputtering out in the quarterfinals was definitely disappointing. So, but my winner for this disappointment tournament is going to go to Belinda Bencic, another award for her. And I think that's just because of kind of what I was saying before, that was playing lights out previously in the lead up to the Australian Open, and had her. It would have been very interesting to see her back in a match in the fourth round, and I think a lot of people were thinking of her as dark horse. So her losing early was definitely a disappointment. All right, so that's it for the awards for the 2026 Australian Open Women's Singles Tournament. And now we're looking towards, the tournaments after the Australian Open this week. We got in the ATP world, we got ATP Montpellier. So I wanted to just talk about some early ATP Montpellier results. We're going to start off in the round of 32. Good win for Arthur Fils. Great to see him win. A tough match, 3 sets, 2 tiebreakers in it. Great to see him lose the second set tiebreaker, come back and win the third. Good to see Arthur Fils. He's a player that I'm excited to see his return, because he when we're talking about players that can compete with Alcaraz and Sinner, he's one of those that you wonder if he can, because he's shown good levels in the past. I hope he gets back to that level soon. So great to see him win, and it's a good win against Royer as well in his home country, nonetheless. Now, how about Ugo Humbert? Little straight sets against Botic van de Zandschulp. Ugo Humbert, a little bit of pressure on him this week because uh, he pulled out of Davis Cup to play in this ATP Montpellier, because I feel like that match against Slovakia in the Davis Cup. Uh, you know, he Does France necessarily need Ugo Humbert to win that? No. Does Ugo Humbert need the ranking points of ATP Montpellier for his future season? This is one of the tournaments he circles on his calendar that he can definitely win. So good result. Really dominant performance. Good to see him playing well. And then this was a little bit of a surprise. How about Martin Dam losing to Hubert Hurkacz, another player that probably was in the top 4 to 5 to win this tournament. He was losing early in Hubert Hurkacz. Now, these are just some upcoming matchups and parts of the draw that I'm very interested with in the future. We got Medjedovic Vavrinka playing soon, and Arthur Fils. We could be seeing a Fils Auger-Aliassime. Would that be quarterfinal? I believe maybe semifinal. Matchup, probably semifinal actually. In that quarterfinal. Quarterfinal between Felix and Fils, that'll be a very fun match to see. And then in the bottom little third, the third section of the draw, third quarter of the draw, I'm looking at Humbert Makic and seeing if we can get a rematch of that. What was that? Adelaide final. So yeah, So those are kind of the parts of the draw that I'm looking towards, and yeah, some interesting matches upcoming. Medvedev Wawrinka, very interesting match. See how Wawrinka does, and Medvedev can play, so I think it could be fun. Now on to the WTA Worlds. We got a couple more tournaments this week. We have Abu Dhabi. We got the Transylvania Open. Awesome name, love that. And then we also have Ostrava in the Czech Republic as well. Um, we're going to start off with Baptiste versus Navarro. Now, this was a good one for Baptiste. Navarro, disappointing start to the season, some alarm bells, but Baptiste, good three-set win for her. Now, upset for the American over the Canadian, Kessler over Fernandez. Again, similar, Navarro and Fernandez, both two players that have not had great starts to the year, both losing early in the Australian Open. Now, this is one I just want to mention because this is a match in WTA Transylvania Open, where hometown Ira Ruse, who had been playing relatively well, lost to Masarova in three sets. Is one I wanted to mention because disappointing for the Romanian to lose at the home tournament. And then as we head on over to Bartunkova Plinkova, Bartunkova, how about that? Another win against a pretty top player in Blinkova. So good for Bartunkova. Jinyu Wang continues her impressive 2026 with straight sets and a bagel against Quevedo. And number one seed, Tatiana Maria out against Volinets. Good one for Volinets. And now this is just a little bit section of the 500 tournament in Abu Dhabi that I want to talk about because I see some interesting matchups possibly in the future. We could be seeing Benjit Ostapenko, and we're going to be seeing Towson Kessler. Those are some interesting matchups. And if we even look even further, whoever wins that Kessler Towson match against Benjit Ostapenko, that's just an interesting part of the draw that I thought was of note and of to mention. Yeah, so that's it for the very, very early results recap from ATP Montpellier, WTA Abu Dhabi, Transylvania Open in Romania, and WTA Ostrava.